right, good morning, everyone. Welcome to my City Managers Update, March 9th, 2022. Thank you for tuning in. As always, I put a few items together that hopefully you might find interesting. And last but not least, if you have questions, please use the chat function, and I'll try to read and respond to your questions, even though it's hard to do two things at the same time. Last week, the council did a few interesting things. We approved the mid-year budget. The mid-year budget is mostly understood as a check-in where we basically count the money that we spend and the money that we received for the first 6 months or so. But we also report back how we completed the previous fiscal year. When we close out a fiscal year, which we close out every year on June 30th, we get a bunch of auditors into our city, and basically what this auditing company then does is that they count the money that we spent and the money that we received for the whole year, check that everything went by the book, that we did all the right journal entries, and every accounting functions has counter accounting functions, all those things that are being cross-checked, and then they say, all right, you ended the fiscal year with this amount of money in the plus. And again, as a city, we have to have a balanced budget. We cannot incur debt. So whatever we do has to pencil out at the end. So last year, June 30th, 2021, after we closed out that fiscal year, we had substantial additional savings that we derived from underspending in mostly our personnel accounts, but also in some areas we already saw that we had higher revenues coming in. For instance, sales tax. Sales tax came in stronger than we expected, and we get paid the sales tax from the state with a delay of approximately 4 to 5 months. So when we close out the year on June 30th, we didn't know where the sales tax would be for the quarter of April, May, and June. Long story short, at the mid-year budget on Tuesday last week, we could present to the council that we had significant surpluses, one-time savings, one-time windfalls of revenues that had not corresponding expenditures. And so like you do at home, you sit down around the kitchen table and you decide jointly, what shall we do with those funds? Shall we invest in necessary repairs? Shall we put it into savings, etc.? What we ask the council to do is to put a great chunk of that money into savings accounts. We depleted our fund for economic uncertainty quite a bit, meaning we took around $2.5 million out of those funds to just get by during the hardest days of the pandemic and the subsequent economic crisis. And so we suggested to the council to backfill the fund for economic uncertainty, but to do it a little bit better than backfill it, but put some extra money into the savings accounts. Our target for the fund for economic uncertainty is 16.6% of the general fund. So whatever we have as a general fund expenditure, 16.6% in addition to that expenditure we want to have in the savings. We went to the council and said, let's make it 18%. And so about $2.51 million went back into the Fund for Economic Uncertainty, which is now the equivalent of 18% of our general fund. My personal objective is to increase that fund to something like at least 20%, if not 25% of the general fund. The 18% that we put aside will give us room to breathe for about 2.5 months of city operations, just to put this into contrast. So council approved that. We also then said, take some of the extra one-time savings and put them into facility reserves. We put two chunks of money, a total of $1.5 million towards the sports center and towards the conference center, $750,000 each. Both facilities will need upgrades. The conference center will need probably a costly rehabilitation after 10, 12 years of operation, which will be something like $10 to $15 million. And the sports center is now almost 30 years old and will require also consistent upkeep. And so both facilities got $750,000 allocated. Another element that is very important for us, and you know that because we have spoken about this a few times, is our pension obligations, and we suggested to the council to put $1 million towards a pension reserve fund, and the council did that as well. We also know that our IT, information technology infrastructure, is aging. Every 5 to 7 years, we have to do major upgrades to our existing systems. And so we know that next fiscal year, basically starting in about 4 months or so, we will have to invest $2.8 million into our information technology infrastructure. So of those one-time savings, we also allocated already $1.5 million towards our technology fund, IT technology fund. And that will help us when we go into the budget for next fiscal year to already have $1.5 million stashed aside. So we don't need to use the future earnings to pay for it. Lastly, what we also did was we used for that not the general fund one-time savings, but our revenues that we get through the Title funds. We created a new climate change resiliency fund, or sea level rise resiliency fund, and put $500,000 in there. Over the next decades, we have to invest millions of dollars to ensure that sea level rise will be responded to with appropriate measures. The measures have not been really firmed up yet, so we don't know exactly what the councils will do, but we know they will need money. Del Monte Avenue, next to Window on the Bay, carries sewer lines, it carries water lines, it carries a lot of infrastructure there. So if we have sea level rise and we are not doing anything in front of the beaches, it can be expected that Del Monte Avenue will be flooded. So we have to relocate infrastructure, we have to relocate streets, we have to create a total new traffic pattern. This will cost money, and we wanted to create already a sea level rise funds that will be funded out of Title funds and hopefully also other funding sources over time. So council approved that as well. So the mid-year was very important. We also brought back 2 full-time sports coordinator positions. One will be in recreation, one will be in the sports center. And those folks who we have already hired as our regular part-time are now already full-time. I signed the paperwork the next day to make those employees full-time again. These are the folks that will set up the programming for our recreation programs. And the largest, of course, are the ones in summer, but we also have recreational programs throughout the whole year, not just the spring break and the winter break, but also throughout the whole year for adults and for children and teenagers. So we hope that with that programming also, we will have a lot of folks returning to our sports centers and our recreational programs. What we will do in the next few weeks is we will create then the budget for next fiscal year. And we are counting the money right now as we speak. What I mean by that is we are projecting what the revenues will be. And those revenues will be hard to estimate, a little harder to estimate, because if you look around what's happening right now here in our neighborhood and also in the world, is you see very strong rising energy prices. What will this have as an effect on Monterey as a destination? We are a drive destination. People come from the Bay Area to Monterey. There are about 11 million people north of us living that are traveling to Monterey or the Monterey Peninsula. So what will the gas prices do to that? The other part is, of course, the gas prices will have an influence on the supply chain. They will increase cost for us. So how will this affect our own city revenues? So estimating tourism will become a little bit of an art form again, in addition to just estimating how do people behave post-pandemic, and let's hope we stay post-pandemic. So we will go through the budget process very publicly. Also, there will be a study session where everyone can bring themselves in. And then, of course, you will hear from stakeholders. They like to see the library back to 7 days a week opening, for instance. And people will say, we want to have the sports center open longer, etc. And that will be, again, a public discussion. And at the end, I'm sure that the council will do the right thing and approve wisely the funds for next fiscal year. That seamlessly after the mid-year budget is the work we are doing right now with our finance team. Enough about the budget. I want to talk about next week's council meeting. I want to encourage you to listen in. We will present at that council meeting a detailed report about our pension obligations. CalPERS is the largest pension fund in the nation, and our CalPERS pension obligations also are increasing year after year. That's no news for those of you who are following our past years, because we've spoken about that freely and openly. Just today, I believe, in the Monterey County Herald is an article about the Monterey County and their challenges with respect to meeting the pension obligations. So it's a challenge that the majority of the cities and counties in the state of California have to deal with. And when I say majority, it's probably north of 90%. And so next week, we will present to the council what is our pension obligation, and look at that as a flexible debt account, because it really depends and varies from year to year how the investments are going for the CalPERS stockbrokers or the CalPERS managers who are investing those billions of dollars into the stock market. And you see what the stock market is doing right now. Some of you with your 401ks see them reducing day after day, or your IRAs. Again, I would expect that next fiscal year, CalPERS will have not the returns that they had in previous years. So again, there will be impacts on our city expenditures for CalPERS as well. Going forward, next week, we will present that. Don't fall down when you hear what the obligation is. Keep in mind, this is a fluctuation. Even if we win the lottery tomorrow and win $1 billion, we would not necessarily use that money to pay off our debt immediately, because today the debt might be $170 million, but tomorrow it might be just $110 million. So it's an interesting think model that is difficult to grasp, but from every 2 years or so, we try to do it annually, but the pandemic prevented us from doing it. But every 2 years or so, we will present those data points, and it's worthwhile listening into it, because it is complex for those who are listening to it for the first time. That will be a key presentation next week, Tuesday. The other interesting part is about affordable housing. We will put some pressure on those agencies that have a say about water. and we will ask the council to approve letters that the council then will send to the State Water Resources Control Board, but also to the Water Management District, as well as courtesy copying the Department for Housing and Community Development in Sacramento, as well as the governor's office. In a nutshell, what we are telling them is the following. We need immediately a lift of the cease and desist order. All requirements for lifting that have been fulfilled. And we need the developers that we have here in the city who want to build affordable housing. They need to have those chains removed, and they need to be able to build affordable housing, including giving the Water Management District the authority to allocate water to those projects. That will help us to build affordable housing. If we don't get this lifted, it doesn't mean anything that we have people who want to build affordable housing if we don't get a few bucketful of water. So next week, Tuesday, we will ask the council to review those letters that staff drafted and then send them out to the State Water Resources Control Board and the Water Management District. There's another twist for the Water Management District because the Association of Monterey Bay Area Governments, AMBAG, they were asked to allocate affordable housing or additional housing into cities, and Monterey got 3,654 additional housing units allocated to our existing inventory. So we are saying, okay, we are asked to plan for that for the next 5 years and to build 3,654 housing units. So the request is just to plan for it, but how good is planning if you don't build? And so basically we are saying, okay, in order to build 3,654 housing units, we need something like 370 to 400 acre feet of water. Tell us, please, Monterey One Water, as well as Water Management District, when do you deliver that water in the next 1 or 2 years? Because we have to build this within 5 years. So we'll see how we will get responses to that back. I am optimistic that something will move, maybe not on broad scope, but we might have surgical successes, and those surgical successes might lead to an additional 500 affordable housing units in the city. That is important. That is better than anything we have done for decades here. So I'm optimistic that this will work, and I hope you can tune in and listen or also express your support for that. The last items I want to share with you briefly are a study session that is coming up, that will be coming up in 2 weeks, exactly on 2 weeks on Wednesday. We will talk about homeless services, and from time to time, also we have done that with the council. We have informed them what we are doing for homeless services. There's a great misconception out there that Monterey is not doing anything for homeless folks. That's a bunch of really not statements that are not measured against the reality. And so part of the study session will be also to ensure that people really know what we have been doing here, and that Monterey has been on the forefront of many, many good things. So the other part, though, is that we will ask service providers as well as the public, where are we failing you? What can we do better? And you see the nexus between homelessness and asking for water. Affordability of housing is a key element. People are living in cars, not because they want to, but because there is no affordable housing out there. Some people work out of cars. They go to work every single day, but sleep in cars somewhere. We need to break that cycle. And what is frustrating for me is that our elected officials on the state level, they see all that, but they are not able to put the puzzle pieces together. And I think having a homeless study session following up a session where we send out letters to the State Water Resources Control Board and to the governor to ask for help will hopefully have an impact. I hope they have hearts enough to see what we try to do here and then find a good balanced approach. Starting April 1st, we will tear up the town again. There will be work rehabilitation road going on, funded by you, the sales tax payers, and of course the visiting public. Measure S will continue, and we'll have on our website posted a variety of streets and other things where we will be doing road work. Please stay tuned, sign up for email updates. And again, Measure S is funded by a 1% sales tax increase, and that money is funded, the sales tax is funded again 62% by folks who are not living in Monterey. So it really benefits us to be a hub for people coming to Monterey, not just visitors and tourists, but also think for all the folks that are going shopping here at Del Monte Shopping Center. That is also an interesting part of the sales tax. So 62% of our sales tax revenues comes from people outside of Monterey. Measure S, with about $10 million now we estimate will come in, is fully funding street rehabilitation work inside of Monterey. Starts again April 1st. This Saturday is cutting day in front of the Colton Hall. It's actually at Friendly Plaza. That's the plaza to the right-hand side of Colton Hall lawn. And at cutting day, you can come and you get cuttings from other gardeners, and you can exchange tips on how to grow stuff. If anybody can tell me how to grow tomatoes in my garden in New Monterey, I will be utmost grateful. Trying this for decades and not being successful. Let me see, that's all our mask requirements. We have lifted the mask requirements for all city buildings. So no masks are required in city buildings. Of course, if people feel that they want to wear a mask, absolutely. We are not doing a Florida Governor DeSantis stunt and tell them that's ridiculous and to take the mask off. We're not like those dudes there. We encourage people to continue doing whatever they think they need to do to stay healthy. We have suspended our vaccination clinics for right now, just because there was zero interest at the farmers market and in other clinics that we hosted, or I want to say very, very little interest. We will pick up the vaccination clinics at any given time if there is a need to that. So we will not expire that permit that we have from the state. We will continue to being up to date on all of that. But for right now, there's really no demand, and it looks a lot like people are getting used to post-pandemic behavior. We will remain vigilant, let me assure you that, and we'll do the right thing if required from us. But hopefully there is a light at the end of the tunnel, and it's not a car that is rushing to you, but the real light. So last but not least, Colton Hall. When you drive by in the evening, Colton Hall is illuminated in the colors of the flag of Ukraine since last week, Monday. The invasion in Ukraine is very troubling, very worrisome. I spoke briefly about the increasing energy prices, but you see what's happening over there, how we're basically Western civilization is getting ripped apart by Russian invasion forces. So in solidarity with the Ukrainian residents, the Ukrainian citizens, the Ukrainian democratic movements there, Colton Hall, the building in which the California Constitution was signed in 1849, and Colton Hall is illuminated in the flag of Ukraine. And so if you drive by, take a look. it's the best we can illuminate it with the systems that we have in place, but it's a small token of remembering that. With that, I thank you again for listening to me, and hope you have a great day in the city of Monterey. Thank you to all of those who are providing us guidance, input, and let us know what's going on. We couldn't do what we are doing without your eyes and ears and your feedback out there. So thank you for that. Have a great day today. Bye-bye.